Welcome to Push to Pass podcast with JP Murray, a discussion about business, racing, sports, and life. This podcast delivers insights on what makes businesses, teams, and people successful based on real-life business experiences. Following a career with America's largest associations, JP Murray founded the Murray Company, one of Washington, D.C.'s most successful consulting firms. The company was acquired successfully and enabled him to launch JP Murray Racing, a business development and sponsorship agency for auto racing teams. Here is JP.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me on this episode. If you read about business, follow gurus, listen to podcasts like this one, sometimes we can start to think that there are extremes, few extremes, winning and losing, profits and losses, entrenched columns of victory and defeat. But you know what? Business life isn't like that at all. Some days you own it, some days it owns you. And I think there's an important recognition today that growth isn't a vertical line. It's up and down and it's all around. You know, I heard someone talk about this. It's like a vine on a tree. It's going all over the place. And everyone has stages. Sometimes I can be super critical because I judge myself on one line, up. And if it's not going up, then I get into kind of bad behavior and judgment and just down. So I want to encourage you at a time when there is misfortune, poor behavior, bad qualities readily on display, that it isn't always that way, that there are victories, there are super people, there are good colleagues, there are fantastic leaders that make it all worthwhile. Sometimes it just takes more work to find these victories. I believe that you and good will win in the end. It is prophecy, and I believe it, and I have faith in it. And one way to keep the trajectory in the right direction is to recognize your strengths and to exploit them. Take your superpower, become familiar with it, and do it more. Marcus Buckingham, in his book, First Manage Your Strengths, talks about this a lot. He discusses the bias of management to spend most of our time on employee feedback that's being critical. Think about those year-end reviews. They talk about the things that you don't excel at, the goals that you miss. They often evaluate the things you didn't do well rather than talking about your strengths, your superpowers, and doubling down on those. And I think if we can be very intentional, we should leverage the strengths that you're good at. You're likely to enjoy those things. You're likely to be very good at it. Why don't we spend most time on that? I'll reflect on this a little bit from my own perspective. I like engaging people. I enjoy developing content. Hey, I do this podcast. I've done almost 400 of these things, videos and whatever it is. But man, I really like doing it. I look at the landscape and develop strategy. I'm kind of a big picture person. I like change and new things. So I try to position my work into those areas. And I want you to kind of have the same reflection. They're not going to be like mine. My superpowers, if you think about us as a part of the Justice League of America, okay, different superheroes had strengths that were unlike the others. So I try to position my work into the areas where I'm strong, and I want you to do the same. I leave the details, the organization, the numbers, frankly, to other people when I have the chance. So first, manage your strengths. 80% of the time on that, 20% minimizing or improving the shortcomings that I know you're familiar with and that you do have. Always tweak those, but don't spend so much time on them because they're never going to be our superpower. Now, I'd like to tell you about the characteristics, strengths, and superpowers of best-in-class chief executives that I've been around. You know, there's volumes of information and stories about why these folks are great, but these are some different aspects that I've observed that might be a little underrated or have less emphasis. One, they make tough decisions. No one else has the authority. No one else can do it. Even in small businesses, everyone's waiting for the boss to make the call, to drop the client, to fire the employee that doesn't pull their weight. That is absolutely critical, and no one else will do it. Large organizations and small organizations, the best leaders make the tough decisions. The easy ones you can give to anybody to do. The other thing, they're the number one salesperson in that company. They have a role in steering the wheel of revenue. Even if they're not directly responsible, they are out there cultivating, helping, growing the business, and it is a priority of them. Some CEOs, after time, start to take their eye off the ball and they don't pay attention to it anymore. And I think the organization suffers. So you're the number one salesperson is a trait of the very best leaders. And number 3, these leaders stick up for the staff. Frankly, some customers are jerks. And they aren't jerks to you because you're the CEO, you're the important person, you're the leader, you're the president. But I'm telling you, behind your back, they're dismissive, they are rude to your team, they treat them poorly. That is the worst. And I tell you something, I wasn't very good at this for a very long time because I'm like, oh no, you know what? He's a pretty good guy. She's nice to me. Meanwhile, they are treating my people terribly. And I didn't address it face to face, point on like I should have. But your people deserve it, and they will thank you forever. They will be indebted and grateful, and they will always work on your behalf. The other way to think about this as well is, if you're the number one salesperson, a lot of these projects that the customers are jerks about are deals that you brought to them. These are the deals that you brought to your staff, so you owe it to them to kind of take some of the grief and take some of the hard knocks that may come with it. These are characteristics of greatness. They are superpowers, often overlooked, and I think you can do all of these a little bit with a certain amount of attention, certain amount of action. These 3 strengths can be yours as well. I hope this episode about superpowers resonates with you because I think you all have them. They're a little bit different for each of us, but let's spend the time exploiting those to the very greatest extent that we can, and I guarantee you it will help you become a more successful leader and business person. Also, an aspirational figure for those that are close to you. With that, I cannot wait to see you next week on the Push to Pass podcast with JP Murray. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Push to Pass podcast with JP Murray, a discussion about business, racing, sports, and life. If you would like to sponsor Push to Pass, send an email to jp@jpmurray.com. Follow JP on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. His website is jpmurray.com. Until next time, push yourself to pass the competition. Thanks for listening.